Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the next in our series of partner webinars. I hope you can hear us all okay. We are just waiting for my colleague Jackie Oughton to join us. So just by way of introduction, my name's Jo Sears. I'm Head of Group Subcontracting for Ixion Group. Maybe some of you have previously attended part one of this webinar. So today we're delivering part two with regard to the supply chain management framework. We have approximately 30 of our partners registered for today's webinar, including a good mix and balance from our skills division, enterprise, and also our justice division from our new NOMS contract. So welcome to our new NOMS suppliers who are joining us today. So we're just holding on for Jackie, and what we'll do is, if she's not in shortly, I will commence the session because we're a couple of minutes late getting started. So I'll push on, taking you through the presentation. So as I say, Jacqueline will be joining us very shortly, who is our Employment and Skills Director. What we plan to do in today's session is to pick up where we left off in terms of the supply chain management framework overview, looking at stages 6 and 7 of the framework. And also during this session we're going to talk a little bit about the Ixion Gateway portal, which again all of you as existing suppliers will be aware of the portal and be using it hopefully on a day-to-day basis now along with our staff. There will also be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the webinar, and as is customary, there is a short feedback survey to ask you obviously your views of the webinar, and also to ask you about any content you'd like to see going forward in webinars from this point going forward. So just to recap really in terms of where we're leading on from part one, our Ixion Supply Chain Management Framework was first released back in March of this year, and we have recently published a newer version at the end of July, so at the end of last month. You can find a copy of the Supply Chain Management Framework on both our website and also the Ixion Gateway portal under the policies and procedures, policies and guidance section of the website. As you can see, we're going to be concentrating on processes 6 and part 7 of the framework, which are around management and exit and review. So these are quite substantive areas of the supply chain framework, and clearly areas that have the most day-to-day impact in terms of your relationship with Ixion and our supply chain contract managers with your organisation. The first point to tell you about the management and monitoring process is that we want to ensure that all our partners are managed appropriately to maintain the high standards and to achieve their contractual targets through the life of the contract with Ixion. And also we want to ensure that we identify risk at the earliest opportunities so that we can secure our funding and success that are protected for both ourselves and our partners. And welcome Jackie, who's just joined us. In terms of an overview, also we want to ensure that as part of the management and monitoring process that we are able to agree a schedule of monitoring visits with you, so you know exactly what to expect, when to expect it, and what those types of visits will be. So they'll encompass both performance management, quality and compliance, to make sure that all of our contractual requirements are met with both the funding body and also the Commissioner's requirements. As with any contract management, it's foregiven that all partners will be issued with performance and qualitative targets or key performance indicators during the life of the contract, and your supply chain contract manager will monitor those performance targets on a monthly basis using a standard template in line with the risk rating allocated. Now, the risk rating we're going to come on to and explain fully about what the risk rating is and how that is allocated to you as our partner. And what we also do is obviously look at actual performance against profile for your contract, and also look at the forecast for future performance against your contract. In terms of the risk ratings that we will be applying to all partners, as I say, this is a new process, and your supply chain contract managers, if they haven't already commenced this process, will be doing so. There are RAG ratings applied to the partners. Ratings are determined after each visit by identifying whether partners are performing across 4 key areas. And those are performance, the customer, people, and process. Right, I understand that we're having some access issues, so I'm just going to pause there for one very short moment to have a look to see how many attendees we have, because there are apparently issues joining the webinar. So just excuse us while I pause for a moment. Right. Okay, we appear to only have 3 attendees logged on, and there are around about 30 registered. So
let's continue.
I think we should continue.
And we can upload the webinar to YouTube for people to refer back to.
I think that would probably be best. So we will press on. So just to recap where I was. So in terms of the management and monitoring of our partners, the way we approach it is to break it down into 4 key areas with you, which your supply chain and contract manager will take you through at each of your monitoring visits. The first of which being performance, customer, process, and people. And shortly I'll come on to a little bit more about what those definitions mean and the types of conversations that we will have around those 4 key areas. And all of the outcomes from those monitoring meetings will be input into something called a monitoring assessment scorecard, which is an Ixion internal, effectively an Excel spreadsheet that calculates the risk value attached to the scoring that has been agreed as part of your monitoring visit. So overall, as I mentioned earlier, there will either be a risk rating allocated to you of red, amber or green, and as you can see through the slide, if you are operating at a certain percentage of your targets, you will be attributed to a certain level. So therefore above 75% you will be attributed towards green RAG rating, between 50 and 74, and amber. Amber is the absolute minimum that we would expect obviously our partners to be working at, and then obviously if you are operating below 50% of your targets, there is a red amber rating, and what I'll do is come on to say exactly what that means in terms of the way in which we work with you and of course support you depending on how you fall in those ratings. As an overview, you can see that attached to those ratings are a number of requirements that we ask of our contract managers and supply chain managers in order to make sure that we're giving you the right support and monitoring for your right level of rating. So therefore, where there is more risk, where your contract is underperforming or there are concerns, then clearly under the red RAG rating there are perhaps weekly and even in some instances where there are new contracts, daily conversations with our partners to make sure that obviously actions and short-term solutions are being sought in terms of some of those improvements, and early implementations of contracts are being fulfilled. And then clearly where we have suppliers and partners who are either red or amber, we would expect both of those risk ratings to have an improvement plan, a performance improvement plan, which again would be monitored on a frequent basis until such time that those improvements take themselves into a green RAG rating. And as you can see, the green RAG rating is the lighter touch, will just be monthly ongoing management reviews, questionnaires to customers, and also the qualitative and compliance quarterly reviews, and also the annual requirements as well, which is consistent across all RAG ratings. Coming back to the 4 key areas that we look at in terms of our ongoing performance management of our partners. This is a nice summary in terms of the areas that we will be discussing with partners across those 4 areas. So clearly performance is about your percentage, financial and contractual performance to your profile and your success targets and outcomes, outputs for your contract, which obviously depend on the different types of contracts that we have with you. But every contract we have with our partners will have some form of financial and contractual profiles and success elements to monitor on an ongoing basis. Process is around the internal audit outcomes, which could be from our compliance colleagues. There could also be external audits from ESF, the funding organisation, be that Skills Funding Agency, DWP, whereby as one of our partners you will be touched by one of the audits. Therefore those outcomes would be captured in the monitoring process. If there are any claims and billing, invoicing issues with yourselves and between yourself and Ixion, then again that is where we would look to cover that off as an agenda item with you and make sure that obviously any ongoing issues with regard to payments and invoices are resolved. We'll be looking at quality of development plans. Clearly we expect all our partners to have self-assessment and quality improvement processes in place. Therefore we'll be looking to see your own development and improvement plans for your quality of service and provision that you have. We will also be looking at the quality of the documents and reviews, evidence of progression that you have for your customers, learners, participants. Depending on the different types of contract, there are requirements for documentation and submissions to Ixion across all different contract types. So this is again about the quality of those submissions to ourselves as the prime contractor. Moving on to customer, so this is about the learner, the participant, the customer, however we refer to them in our type of provision. So it's about looking at how we market activity, such as also looking at the complaints process that we have for our customers, locations that provision is available, is it meeting customers' needs in terms of rurality, urban areas, access to provision through online training, is it classroom based, through job centres. So it's about making sure that we understand where your customers are accessing your provision. We'll always look at clearly early leavers and retention on programmes because that affects the ability to achieve quality outcomes. Where there is learning on programmes, education and training, we will look at the effectiveness of that learning, which all comes down to the success rates and outputs within the contract. And other areas that we will look at are those cross-cutting areas that affect customers around both health and safety, safeguarding as well. So we would look to cover all of these areas with you on at least a monthly basis. Some of them may fall into quarterly regime depending on your RAG rating, but there would always be an opportunity for both the supply chain and contract manager and yourselves as the partner to pick up any of these issues, because there will be a prompt to do so in the performance and monitoring template that we go through with you. And the last of the 4 key areas is around people. So this is talking about ensuring that we have an understanding about how your organisation recruits its staff, how it inducts staff, making sure that we can support with any additional staff training. If there are specific qualifications that certain contracts require, for example, our enterprise contract for new enterprise allowance requires SFEDI accreditation of our staff, Ixion staff, and also of our partners. So again, our supply chain manager will look to monitor to make sure that all of our contracts and their staff are all suitably qualified, and that will be something that we would look at on an ongoing basis. We would look at clearly the other thematic area of equality of opportunity, how your organisation sets equality and diversity measures within the contract, how you promote equality of opportunity and diversity. Where there is education and training, we would undertake observations of teaching, learning, assessment, and also information, advice and guidance. And that could also be for our enterprise contracts, we could also observe business advice as well around the business startup process. We would also talk with you about resourcing of your contract, be that around those areas of staffing and ongoing commitment to that contract around the resourcing to meet the requirements of the contract, and also turnover. So that's again looking at the capacity to grow the contract potentially if there are opportunities, and to make sure that everything falls into line financially, linking back to performance. How we will score those areas is illustrated in the slide you have in front of you presently. So looking at those 4 key performance areas, there are weightings to each of the 4 sections. So 40% of the weighting is attributed to performance, and the remaining 60% is split across process, customer and people. And then as you can see there, during your monitoring meetings with your supply chain contract manager, they will score on their own judgment each section, in particularly around the customer and people. They will be led by our quality and compliance colleagues in terms of process, if any audits have been undertaken whereby they have sought full assurance down to limited assurance. And clearly performance speaks for itself, because that is around clearly your contractual performance financially. So all of these points attribute to the total scoring, which is in the bottom right hand corner of your slide on screen at present. So therefore, if you fall within the overall points, then you will be attributed this risk banding. As I mentioned earlier, clearly we're looking for every partner to be operating at least amber level. Clearly we don't seek to have partners operating at a red level. We want everyone to be operating ideally within a green RAG rating, but we accept that sometimes with peaks and troughs of delivery, some areas do fall behind, which could take them into an amber RAG rating. So we would want to work with you to make sure that we can take you into green from amber. And of course, if you do fall into red, there will be a performance improvement plan, which I've referred to there as a PIP. Now, if partners do not improve within the agreed timescales from the performance improvement plan, then we would enter into what we refer to as a breach management process. In your service level agreement, there are stated clauses around which point we would enter breach management with you. But what we aim to do is clearly, when we enter breach management process with you, is for that to be very much open and transparent, and also supportive, so that hopefully suppliers that find themselves in breach management can take themselves out of breach management with the right corrective action. All the documents and within the performance monitoring process from your contract managers and supply chain managers will be uploaded into the supplier portal, what we refer to as the Ixion gateway. Clearly, all documentation needs to be agreed as factual and accurate, but with yourselves as the partner. So it's a true reflection of the discussions that have taken place, and those will be countersigned. And then once countersigned, they will be uploaded to the portal again for clear transparency to demonstrate our undertaking to a full performance review process. The RAG ratings of all of our partners across all divisions are reported into our divisional directors, so that's Jackie for Skills, Linda Cyan for Enterprise, and obviously Chris Harrison for Justice, and any further contracts we receive into operations. And also the Ixion board, whereby we feed up into the board a full assessment of our supply chain base and the performance within our supply chain. So as a summary, the documentation that your supply chain contract manager will complete with you will be at the outset of the contract year, or very soon we'll be agreeing with you a monitoring schedule of activity. So this is about agreeing how frequent there will be weekly or daily telephone calls in the instance of some obviously early setup of contracts, where there will be monthly monitoring performance, what will be included within that monthly performance, and also quarterly reviews as well of your contract. We have a standard performance review agenda. This ensures that all of the items within the performance monitoring template are given the opportunity to be covered. It's not necessarily to be prescriptive and for contract or supply chain managers to go through things for performance sake, but to ensure that there is an opportunity there for all subject areas to be covered within that supply chain meeting. There is the template, which is again available, all of these available in supply chain management framework for your viewing, which shows you the 4 key performance areas and the types of questioning, as I mentioned earlier, that will support and lead those conversations around those 4 key performance areas. There would be a performance improvement plan if you are RAG rated either red or amber, and then clearly, which we don't hope there are any cases of, there would be a breach management plan if the breach management process has been instigated. And as I pointed out earlier, all of the records above will all need to be agreed, signed and dated by both the supply chain contract manager and yourself as partner to confirm 100% of the accuracy. And once that's happened, they will be uploaded to the Ixion Gateway portal. The last stage of the supply chain management framework is to talk to you about the exit and end of contract review. So this is simply about ensuring that all of our contracts are closed properly. The 3 ways in which we would end a contract with you are, first of which would be a natural end. So for example, within our skills division, we have some ESF contracts coming to the end at the end of this month, which is skills support for the workforce and skills support for the work programme. And also our SFA contracts are all on an academic year basis, so they all need to be reviewed because they all come to an end at the end of July. And obviously there are some enterprise contracts which are through till 2016 and NOMS is through till 2020. So it's looking at the rationale for a natural end. There could be a breaking contract. Therefore, if a partner decides to hand back a contract because they are no longer capable and or have the capacity to be able to deliver a contract, or if something has broken down in the relationship, then they can hand a contract back to us for a good reason. And also there would be termination for the breach management. If breach management process does not reach a positive conclusion, then we would be able to terminate through the breach management process. Within the supply chain framework, there are 2 documents that support the review of contracts and end of contract process. And again, they relate back to the 4 key areas, but in a conclusive nature, in that we will be reviewing conclusively performance, people, processes, and also our subcontract closure checklist is about the hard close of a contract, so making sure that all of our administration systems, processes have all been closed down correctly, and clearly we need to make sure that payments have been made, everything has been reconciled and closed off in the correct manner. The supply chain and contract managers will own and populate the templates. This is purely for your information, because this process is led by the Ixion supply chain contract manager. But they don't do that in isolation, because clearly they need to liaise with our internal compliance teams and also our finance team with regard to closing of contracts. And again, all of this information is uploaded to the supplier portal. I'm going to move on now to just briefly talk to you about the functionality of the Ixion Gateway portal. Hopefully all of you are now familiar with the Ixion Gateway portal, or Intend as some of us refer to in Ixion. Intend is actually the brand for which we purchase, but our brand within Ixion is the Gateway portal, so we like to refer to it as that. All suppliers, you will have a unique login for your own area within the portal. And if you haven't done so already, you can add multiple users. So if there is just one user presently, you can add further users to your account, recognising that obviously there are many roles across organisations which touch on areas of contract management with your contracts. It's a single repository for all contractual information, so therefore all of the documentation that I've talked about in this webinar today will be stored on this portal, and also information with regard to your organisational details around policies, procedures, your insurances, and also the actual copy of the contract itself is stored on the portal. We now wish to consider the Ixion Gateway as Route 1 for all of the partner contractual correspondence, recognising that your relationship probably to this point has been conducted largely through email with your supply chain contract manager. There is the mechanism there by which we can communicate with you through correspondence through the portal. You will have no doubt received messages through the portal with regard to webinars and messages that go out to partners from directors and colleagues, and that is our preferred choice now for communications into and out of Ixion with our partners, because again this evidences clear, open, transparent communications for all parties concerned. And we also have an audit trail for communications and documentation. Using email can often leave an element of concern where things are deleted, and obviously using the portal there is a clear audit trail that we can go back if things are deleted by accident, and or confirm whether things have or haven't been sent and or haven't been read by ourselves and partners. We can attach expiry dates to all of the documentation, so therefore the annual policies, insurances, your accreditations, be that matrix, ISO, your centre approvals, we can attach documentation expiry dates to them, so to make sure that we're asking you at the right time for those policies, rather than keep mentioning it every month. We will only ask you when that document actually expires. And there is also an approval system on the portal for all of your documentation, because when your documentation comes in, there is a team of what we refer to as policy champions that review all of the policies to ensure that they stand up against Ixion's own policies, and they are then approved on the portal to become one of our approved suppliers. That really concludes the webinar in terms of the supply chain management framework for management and monitoring, and also review and exit of contracts. We do have a number of webinars coming up over the summer, and you can see there the headings that we are working with, which is the 4 cross-cutting themes of safeguarding, environmental sustainability, health and safety, and equality and diversity. And there is a short survey at the end of this webinar which asks you if there are any areas also that you would like see included in partner webinars. So we'd really like to hear some feedback from you with regard to that. I don't think there will be any questions because of the issues we have had with the webinar this time round, but I shall check to see if there are any questions logged. There are not. So what I will do is move on to close the webinar. Thank you for attending, and for those that are watching this via the YouTube link, we apologise obviously for the transmission problems. Not quite sure exactly what the problem has been because we have broadcast other webinars earlier in the day, so we'll have a look to see what the problems are and make sure that we don't encounter this obviously for the next one. But please do complete the short survey and give us your feedback.